Good evening, everyone. This is your Monday night continuing education, learning new things about essential oils. And tonight, I want to talk about 2 oils that are in my toolbox for killing those bacterias. And bacteria is just really tricky, and I'm going to talk about why, but I want to just go back. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about On Guard and how On Guard is going to be the oil that's going to protect you from this year's stuff that's going to get around the kids' school, the things that float around your workplace, and even in your home, because let's face it, even if your kids are not in school and you don't work, you still have to go to the grocery store. You still have to go shopping at Target. You're still going to go, to indoor playgrounds. And so we want to do what we can to keep our families healthy and germ-free. Hi, Shauna. And so what do you do when you're exposed to, or you end up with an illness that's maybe a little bit stronger than a virus? So how do you tell the difference? This is something that I learned a lot actually a few years ago. I really started to understand, how can I tell that I have a viral or a bacterial issue? And honestly, I do not want to take away from, going to the doctor. That's not what I'm here for. But if you are like me and you'd rather save the trip, here's what you can do. Well, first of all, when you take On Guard gel caps, oregano is in them, which oregano is our antibacterial oil. So that's already in there. So that is very helpful. But when you have a virus, what does it look like? You have body aches, you have maybe a fever, and then you have whatever symptoms come along with it, whether it's like a cold or trying to think of all the viruses out there. But a cold is usually what I think of, or you get the flu virus or something like that. So a virus, Shauna, you can if they can swallow them, but I don't normally give them to my kids. My 8-year-old will try one. So a virus should be gone within 5 to 7 days, at the most. Normally your symptoms should be tapering off in 3 days. If you're using essential oils, you should definitely see the tapering off of those symptoms within 3 days. Now, one of the things that I learned, I just wasn't getting better, and I was going beyond the 10 days. And so when I went to the doctor about it, they explained to me that when a virus is sitting with you for too long, it actually turns bacterial on you. So after about 10 days, if your virus is stronger and harder, you get a fever again, your symptoms are just worse. And let me just tell you, I've experienced this. I actually thought I had a sinus infection, and I went to the doctor and he treated it as such. And I did not get better. See, here's the thing. If you get an antibiotic and you're not getting better, that's not a bacterial issue. You had a viral issue. So that's what happened to me. I actually had a viral issue. I had the flu. And so I actually had 2 days where I started to feel better, and I started to go back to work. And after the first day, I realized that was a mistake, because then I got hit harder. I thought I was dying. It was so bad. My fever was way worse. My body aches were way worse. That is how it operates. So you have a virus, it starts to go away, and then if 3 to 4 days pass and it comes back stronger, that's bacterial. So that is what the doctor told me. So with that information, that lets me know how to use my essential oils. So we talked about On Guard, and we talk about orange, and we talk about lavender and frankincense, and all of those are great for viral issues, and we use them on a regular basis. Hopefully we won't actually have them happen. On Guard is the protective blend, so when you wear it, you're protected. It's like wearing a bubble on you. Have you guys seen those funny pictures of people wearing bubbles so they stay healthy? So today we're going to talk about Melaleuca and Oregano. So I don't forget anything, I have my Modern Essentials book, which, by the way, if you want this resource, I got an email from aromatools.com. They are selling this book for $16.95. It normally goes for $26. So you can get it there. I think there's 6 or 7 days left on that. So go get this book. So let's talk about Melaleuca and its common uses. And they go on and on. Seriously, the list is so long. But A lot of people use them for skin issues. They're very soothing for that. It's good for fungal issues, athlete's foot, yeast infections, candida, which I have a really cool testimony I'm going to share with you guys in a little bit. Allergies, things like bronchitis. A lot of people don't realize Melaleuca is like a mild form of eucalyptus. So it's totally safe to use on your babies instead of using eucalyptus or even peppermint. I have used it because this baby that I have now, he got sick a lot last winter. And so I was using it on this area to drain those ears and that congestion that was sitting up in there. Okay, it's good for cold sores. It's very cleansing. It's also good for the mouth. We have lots of bacteria in our mouth. Common colds, eczema, dry, itchy eyes. Don't put it in your eyes, guys. Put it around the eyes. Wound care, specifically. I'm going to share with you some science on this, actually. Gum disease. It's also good for things like herpes. And we talked about the cold sores, but there's also the other kind. Gum disease. Let's see. Infected wounds. And inflammation. Actually, there's this cool thing that I found out, and it's not in this book because this book has new research. This is actually an old research book I was reading. Melaleuca did a study on something. I'm pretty sure it's not in here, but let me check. No, I don't see it in here, but I am skimming kind of fast. So, you know how when you get a cut, and I experience this most with a cat scratch, and the cut breaks the skin, and it leaves a raised edge around it. Kind of like something burrowed under the cut and created like a tunnel. That kind of inflammation is your body's response to certain kinds of bacterial infections, like what you would find on a cat's claw. And this is the only time I've ever experienced this kind. If you were to like scrape up against maybe barbed wire or something that's like that kind of rough, sharp edge, you would experience this too. But Melaleuca actually addresses that kind of inflammation specifically, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, which just, you know, made me feel really confident in my use of wound care, especially when the cat scratches the kids. Okay, so other things it's good for is like lice, ringworm, which again, that's a fungal issue, sore throat, staph infections, sunburns, because it's very soothing to the skin. It's also really good with thrush. So I actually want to share a testimony with you. So I had someone who was passing through, and they actually started to show signs of thrush where it was on the tongue and it was the white fuzz that you see, and which was shocking for an adult. This is normally something you'd see in a baby. But with adults, and it does happen, usually when that's going on, there's a major candida issue going on in the body. So while we can address the thrush, we also need to address the gut. Totally different video, so I'm not going to go into that. So what I did is I made up a solution of Melaleuca. On Guard, I used the Touch, so it's pre-diluted, it's the On Guard. I actually just took the cap off and poured some in. And then another oil called Arbor Vitae, which is tested very effective for that kind of thing. And I made it in a spray, so I only put a little bit of oil in, then I filled it up with coconut oil, and it tasted horrible. So when I give someone some sort of oil concoction, I always try it first because I want to know what they're going to experience. So she used it, and within, I would say, at least 2 days, like her tongue was fine. So I thought that was fascinating. I really wish I would have taken before and after pictures. I know you guys would have loved to see that, right? So anyways, that was really cool, and I just wanted to share that testimony on these two oils. And so also yeast infections for the ladies, it's really helpful for that. So let me get into some science for you, because in this book it actually shares additional research right here, and so I kind of marked some that I thought you guys might find particularly fascinating. So this is on Melaleuca. So antibacterial properties. MRSA and MSSA, MSSA in biofilms were eradicated by a 5% solution of tea tree oil. Isn't that fascinating? So there's a lot of parentheses in these because there's a lot of scientific words, so I'm kind of like reading through it. Then another one, staph, including MRSA strains and 33 mupirocin. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Resistant strains were inhibited by tea tree oil. So that's Melaleuca again. And then we have tea tree oil and its component terpenine demonstrated an effective antibacterial activity against staph. And it was a superior to the activity of several antibiotic drugs. Amazing. And so this one is really interesting. Tea tree oil was found to kill transient skin flora at lower concentrations than it killed resident skin flora. Okay, let me break down what that means. So resident flora is like potential opportunistic pathogens. They're on your skin, they're there, and they will look for opportunities. For example, your child gets a mosquito bite and he scratches it a lot, and all of a sudden he has MRSA. That's an example of that. And then we have transient flora. This is like passing through viruses, or not viruses, passing through bacteria. They are not bacteria that typically are in the gut or on the skin, like norovirus. The way we get that is by being exposed to it. So that's how that works. So Melaleuca was found to kill transient skin flora at lower concentrations than it killed resident. So that just means it was better at killing resident flora, those opportunistic pathogens. So your kid gets a mosquito bite and they go to scratch it, grab your Melaleuca. It's going to prevent stuff, which is why we use it in wound care. And when I say prevent, guys, I'm talking about those big daddy bacteria that send you to the hospital. So that's why I just have Melaleuca on hand and we just put it on. No big deal, right? Okay, so let's talk about oregano. Let me find it. There it is. So oregano is a really strong oil. I don't use it very often. It's good for things like athlete's foot as well, or other yeast issues, but I'm going to tell you it burns. So you're going to definitely want to dilute it, which is why I like the Touch blend specifically. Crazy enough, it's also good for carpal tunnel, which I'm not going to get into the reason why, but if you have carpal tunnel and you want to know why, I'll definitely answer that question. So this is where some of us wellness advocates with doTERRA got in trouble, because everyone started freaking out about Ebola a couple of years ago. Oregano has been researched to be effective against Ebola, but I can't say that on Facebook. Ooh, I just did. Don't tell anybody. So it's also good for MRSA, muscle aches, nasal polyps, parasites. Who knew? Plague. I just said that, right? Pneumonia, ringworm, staph infection, vaginal candida, viral infections, and warts and whooping cough. So that's amazing, isn't it? So I did highlight a few studies here. Oregano oil was found to inhibit MRSA. Oregano oil was found to kill antibiotic resistant strains of staph, E. coli, another word I can't, like 3 other words I can't pronounce, which makes me want to Google them and see what their common words are, because it's probably things like pneumonia, pylori, did I say that right? So that is really, really amazing. So I mentioned biofilm when it came to Melaleuca. So let's talk about how these two oils work together. So first, before we do that, let's talk about what a bacteria is. So bacteria is a water-loving substance or thing. So viruses go into the cells. Bacteria likes to be on the outside because viruses are fat-loving, so they go in the cells. Bacteria is more water-loving. Did you know oregano is also more water-loving versus our citrus oils that are more fat-loving, so they get into the cells a little bit more effectively than oregano, which is why oregano alone is not so effective with bacteria. And I'm going to tell you how that works. So bacteria is strong and it's resistant, and what it does to preserve itself is it changes its genetic makeup. This is why antibiotic resistance is a serious issue and concern in the medical community, which is funny because they're not doing a lot of research on antibiotics anymore. They're doing more research on vaccines, which kind of makes me nervous, but whatever, we have our oils, right? So all this antibiotic resistance just is making these bacteria stronger and harder to kill. So how that works is the bacteria has a layer on it, like a layer, it's like a shell, like what you would find like on an M&M that protects the chocolate on the inside. And so that actually protects that bacteria. And then around that film is something called, or not film, shell, is called biofilm. And it's like this sludgy, slimy stuff that's really hard to get through. And so what Melaleuca can do is it can come in and modify that slimy sludge that bacteria has put around it to protect itself and help to remove that biofilm. So that takes away one defense that the bacteria has. Now, we have that shell. What do we do to get around that shell? Well, oregano has an ingredient called carvacrol. And carvacrol binds to that, the chemical or the molecular makeup of that shell, and it can puncture it. And it will open it up, and then there's this thing called, okay, I'm not even gonna try to say this word, so I'm gonna use Jennifer's terminology. It opens it up and allows this action of ions that pass back and forth, causing that shell to just bust open. And so there you go. Then the body has its own defenses to then take care of the job. See, it's really difficult. So when we have like these potential opportunistic pathogens like this resident flora that sits in our skin, sits in our gut, and whatever, when you are stressed or your body is low in its immune system. So like, for example, when I had the flu, but it was treated like a sinus infection and I took an antibiotic for that, that was an opportunity for bacteria then to come along and wreak havoc in my body. So it was very opportunistic. So then an antibiotic, literally 24 hours, I was feeling so much better. But had I had the right oils and would have been treating it correctly using oregano and Melaleuca, I probably would have been so much better off, but who knows? But how do I know? Actually, it's because I've used these oils to address things like UTI infections, strep throat, or at least what I thought felt like strep throat. So that's what I do. So when we talk about back to school and being ready for cold and flu season, these are two oils that you need to have on hand. So we have Melaleuca and we have oregano, which I hardly ever use this, but I like that it's here. This bottle is about halfway and I've probably had it for 2 years. That's what's so nice is they last so long. And then I have this one. This is the Melaleuca Touch. So if I'm going to use something topically, this is what I'm going to do. Now, if I want to take something in a capsule, I can pop this in a capsule, put some coconut oil in it because it's really spicy. You only need 1 drop, guys. It's really spicy. Or you can get the On Guard gel caps that have it in there, which also has Melissa and black pepper. And then if you want to take a capsule with some Melaleuca and some coconut oil, you can totally do that. So that is what I do to protect myself when I think I have a bacterial issue, is I use the Melaleuca for prevention, and then I use the oregano if I think or suspect that it's happening. So hopefully this was helpful, but this is your Monday night learning new things about essential oils. Get these oils if you don't have them on hand, but hopefully you do because they do come in most of the starter packs that most of you did start with. So if you have any questions, just post them in the comments below. And then also tomorrow, I have an announcement as far as LRP Club goes, and I am just trying to get my ducks in a row on it before I say anything. So you want to look for that tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone. I will see you later.